Hi guys!
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of the Mai and John podcast. So last week we had March break. We were quite busy with the kids with a lot of different activities. So we did skip 1 week, but we are back now on schedule for our weekly episode. So just want to say first off, thank you so much to all of our family and friends and even strangers that we never met that have been checking out our podcast. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And so today, I something that I wanted to talk about actually kind of stemmed from a conversation that I heard in a community that I belong to. So I'm a member of a community called Night Out Nations, where entrepreneurs and professionals get together to help each other learn to how to share our stories, how to build our brand. We talk a lot about online marketing, but there's a lot of personal growth that happens. And an individual in there asked a question to one of the mentor and says, what like if I'm a new entrepreneur, what do I need to do to be able to continue to grow my business to be successful? Because I have no idea what's next. And I think this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they first started, asked this question. But then what happened was that pegged me to kind of thought about it as I listened to everyone else giving ideas and tips. Is I kind of put in the chat and I said, I guess for me, it really depends on what your definition of success is, right?
True.
Because if success is defined by the bottom line and by how much your company is making, it's very different in terms of what the strategies, the plan, the roadmap that you have to do. But what if your success is different? What if your success is measured by just, the time you have with your family, the way that you live your life? And so it pegs these questions, and I don't know if we had a chance to really dig deep with each other about this topic. So I figure maybe this is something we can kind of share today is what is our definition of success? And I feel like every year we kind of have to revisit it because we sometimes may get carried away and we keep on adding more goals, more things that we want to the list, right?
Well, I think to that point, yeah, definitely. Well, success to me seems like it's constantly like a moving target. It's not something that I think. Like for me at least, it's not something that you get there and then you've kind of reached that that goal point or that sort of finish line, if you will, and then that's it. I think that it's always constantly being moved from, and not forward and backward. It's like side to side and up and down, and it's in which direction you can kind of go in. I know for us, we've had experience with a little bit of, with business success and stuff like that, where, we've achieved certain things like that. But then, we've achieved certain goals in business, but then our personal life is a little bit off. Or we've achieved things in our personal life and then our business is off. Or, like for us, we've had lifestyles where we've had a lot of time and freedom. But if you look at from a material, standpoint or perspective, we weren't living, sort of in the best living conditions, if you will.
Or living the high life.
Yeah. For us now, I feel like, we've managed to accumulate a little bit more material things, if you will. I absolutely love the home that we've built and that we're living in. But when it comes to freedom, we're sort of bound by our our monthly cost of living, or our our mortgage payments, if you will, and it's not allowing us as much freedom to explore and travel and things like that. So um, yeah, I just always feel like we've figured out a little bit of success in one area, and
And then,
overall, like it's like a
mm,
constant it's like a constant juggling
yeah.
act, right?
Perhaps that's probably, to me, now that I'm thinking about it, is I can almost guarantee most people feel that their definition of success is this, but it's actually being influenced by a lot of things in our childhood and as we grow up, that sometimes we feel lost. And I think that's why we're kind of teetottering, right? Because I kind of, how many of us really sit there and paint that picture of this is my ideal life? And once I get there, I just will enjoy myself. I don't need to accumulate more. I don't need to have more. I don't need to do more.
Well, sorry, hold that thought for a second. To that point, though, I feel like, yes, our childhood definitely shapes the way we think and what we envision as, a successful future. But correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like a lot of times when you are picturing this success in life, it all is it all is based around, this is the house I'm going to live in, this is the car I'm going to drive, this is the clothes I'm going to wear, this is the watch I'm going to. It's all material things.
Yeah, this
And
career I'm gonna have, this is the title I
right.
wanna be. But if we define success nowadays, I know that there's a lot of those who are going inwards that are defining success by their level of joy, level of happiness, the quality of their life.
Yeah.
Then would you say someone that is able, let's say, kind of quit their job and start and now is backpacking all around the world, traveling, experience new experiences, compared to someone who's running like a Fortune 500 company and really building that success? Who's to say who's happier, right? How do
Oh,
we
yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah, that's definitely in the eye of the beholder, right? Um, to me, I believe that the success is, well, for me, I think one of my moving goals, in terms of success, is just determines how well our children do. Like that's something for me that's kind of, that will sort of determine, my happiness when whenever my ticket gets punched and it's time for me to go, is how independent my children are, and how
Mm.
um, you know how we raise them as
Okay.
human beings.
So that's a success that's a definition of success that you create since becoming a parent, which obviously have changed before
Yeah, I guess so. I
you
guess
were a
so.
parent, right?
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
like fatherhood is always something that I was very. It's something I always was. I knew was going to be a part of my future.
Mm.
I've always wanted to be. Yeah, I've always wanted to have a family and stuff like that, and well, I mean, maybe not when I was a kid, but definitely in my, you know, at a like a young mature age. In I don't know when that started. Maybe in my early 20s or late teens or what have you, is kind of like one of those things that I knew that becoming a parent was part of my success.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then yeah, I guess when I became a parent, it was kind of clear that I wanted to raise, you know good human beings who are going to impact the world in a positive way too, right?
Yeah, for sure. For me, I
I
mean,
hope I hope we're on the same page there.
well, that's your definition. There is no right
Yeah.
or wrong. There
No,
is
for
no right
sure,
or
for
wrong,
sure.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
For me, I think growing up, because predominantly my thoughts were always filled with like, how do I kind of make more money? Because I think it depends. Like, if you live in poverty or your whole family was always fighting about financial problems, it's kind of something that occupy a lot of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's what's in your mind, you tend to kind of have that definition. How do I get out of that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So growing up, for me, the definition of success is really to, yeah, to have an impressive career, or to build like a very successful business, as well as to live in a mansion, to travel the world. And for me, it's about having a lot of money so I can do whatever I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, though, when I was younger, I don't know. Basically, I also believe you have to sacrifice. It depends on how big your goals and your dreams in terms of your definition of success, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if for me, building a huge empire is something I truly want. When I was younger, I didn't know that that really meant that I was sleeping, eating, and breathing that business.
Mm-hmm.
There might not be that balance or harmony in time for my own personal growth, or time to take care of my health, my mental well-being. I never thought of those things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Until once I kind of go through life and all the experiences. So I feel like my definition of success constantly is changing, based on what I believed would make me happy, which is, I would accumulate this amount of money. I would have a huge house. I would drive a Mercedes. There's a lot of definition of success when I was younger that is around materialistic things. And the funny thing is, when I did achieve it, I look at what I had to do to drive, to kind of own my Mercedes, what I had to do to be able to afford a certain type of lifestyle. There are sacrifices that I had to make, like time away from my children, just overall, even time to take care of myself. I had no time to go to the gym. If I really is just focused on making money and generating money and doing whatever it takes, I feel sometimes I can get lost into that kind of world, because by nature, I feel like I have this kind of addictive nature. Like, it's almost like I don't watch Netflix, but if I start watching a series, I will binge until I finish the entire series. And that happened to me when I start getting into series, and I'm kind of scared because I know my personality. If I want to build like an empire, then what I want to do is breathe and live that business and nothing else. Like, I can kind of like put on the blinders and just focus. And I think that's what helped me create success in some of the ventures that I have. For example, I ventured into network marketing before, and from no experience to building a team of 300 people under me and hitting a certain level within just, half a year, for example, shows what's possible when you just kind of focus, right? Yeah. You remember those times?
Yeah, for sure. I was teetering while you were tottering.
I was so back. This was a couple, more than 5 years ago, where I kind of immersed myself, and I was like, I just want to see if this really worked. And I remember I would go to meetings every day, and then eventually I would present at meetings. I would go on one-on-one calls. I would have team calls, team trainings. And I'm constantly, morning, night, I would drive an hour away to meet up to do a presentation. And I know for a lot of people that that's what it takes to be successful at what you want to do. You gotta do the simple things day in, day out consistently, which is basically the boring stuff, the things people don't want to do. You know what I mean? And if you do it consistently enough.
Thinking back, I feel like, and that's where maybe you and I sort of have opposing views in that, like, that definitely that pace was, it was absolutely not sustainable. And
Mm-hmm.
like you went from, I don't remember exactly what you were doing before that, but you went from doing something completely different to getting involved with that business, and then eat, sleeping, breathing, and shitting, network marketing. And, you know, from my point of view, it was more of like, that was doing well for that period of time, but everything else was sort of
Falling through the cracks, kind of.
suffering, falling through the cracks. And yeah, absolutely, there was no balance. Whereas, where, I mean, I can't say I would do the same thing. So it's hard for me to really give an opinion, because like network marketing was definitely not something for me that I really, I can see the benefit of the experience and going out and doing it, and like building a network
Mm.
that big of so many people that looked up to you and respected you and stuff like that, and so quickly. I can see there are some benefits and some positives there, but at the same time, um, I felt like it was, you were being taught not to get rich quick, to build a business slowly, but the way the business was built was very contradictive, and it was try to get rich quick.
I see what you
You know what I
mean.
mean? Like, it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
there was no balance.
But here's the thing, that is the argument we all tell ourselves when we're
Sure.
trying to work on something. Now, let's say if it wasn't network marketing, because it was never meant to be the long game, right?
Yeah.
It was always meant to be you kind of hustle hard for that 2 years, 3 years, and then you can take your foot off the gas and you can coast. Or that's how it's being sold to us, right? In many opportunities, right? And then, so now take into, let's say, instead of that, you're running a restaurant, right? Same thing. You would tell yourself, I just need to put in all those hard working hours for the first 2 to 3 years of my life. Then I hire the right people, I build the right team. And then after that, I can kind of coast, right? But reality is, I do know a lot of my friends who are restaurateurs who it's now 15 years, 20 years. They're not coasting. They're still working very hard. They're making good money. The business is established, but they still don't have the life that they want to live, right? And I find that every time I myself, when I get into something, I always tell myself, this is just gonna be the short run. I just need to make it through, and then after that I can coast. And I think that's where the challenge comes with that mentality.
Yeah.
That is, in a way, kind of
It's
doing
like
it backwards.
it's like it's like the whole fad of dieting, right?
Yeah.
They make you seem like it makes it seem like, well, there was this whole, like, I'm assuming there's still a fad going on with different, like, different diets. There was keto. There was
Keto's recently. Back then there's Atkins.
Atkins, yeah.
There's low carb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
There
you can
is
do like
carnivore.
a meat-based diet or a plant-based diet, and the idea was to lose some weight, and then and then from there it's like you only have to do it for a short period of time, and then eventually you go back, and and then you're supposed to be, the idea that you're sold on is that you do it for a short period of time and then you are healthy. But in reality, I think what we've learned, and it's kind of going back to what we were talking about in business as well, is like it's more of like creating a lifestyle.
Yeah. You got you hit the nail on the head there. Is that I was having a conversation with my friend Andy, and I was just sharing Andy, because Andy shared that, oh, the fact that he saw my consistent post of me going back to working out, that was one of the reason why that motivated him to work out. And I share with him, what's funny is that I find that I've tried so many diets in the past.
Yeah.
Weight has always been something I struggle with as well too. I've always wanted to lose weight. I just feel like there's always this extra meat. I don't feel comfortable in my clothes, and it's always been yo-yoing up and down. And I try so many things. This is dating back to my high school years even. And the problem with that is because I have a focus on I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to look a certain way. And then I would work so hard, or I would starve myself, whatever it takes to get there. But as soon as I get there, because I work so hard, I let myself go after. I said, now I need to enjoy now. And that's where it's not sustainable, because it's that mentality of I'll do whatever it takes, even though I'm suffering tremendously to get there. And then once I get there, you think it's okay, but it's not okay, right? And so what then happens is I go back to my regular routine, my old habits, and of course all the weight came back. Now not only did the weight came back, there's something else that happened is inside my head. Now I'm shaming myself. I said, oh my gosh, you worked so hard and now you gain it all back. This is just another way to prove that you are not disciplined enough. Or, you start judging yourself. You have a lot of those self-doubts and you're like, oh my God, nothing is ever gonna work. So you tell yourself those stories when in fact, I realized so I read some books talking about habits. I'm like, maybe I got it all wrong. Like, stop wanting to hit some specific goal in life and just want to achieve certain things. But why don't I set daily habits of what I want to be, the person I want to be? Like, if I want to be a fit person, what do they do on a daily basis?
They exercise and eat healthy.
Yeah, they have some type of a habit around it, right?
Which kind of brings us to our sort of kind of ties into our next subject, which was I think you wanted to talk a little bit about goal setting. Before we get really into goal setting, my beliefs are, and this is something that's changed, that when in business and in sports, athletics, I was always taught when I was younger is to set goals, and then we were taught to set SMART goals, right? So what was SMART stand for? It was like specific, measurable, attainable, timely, and realistic.
Yeah.
Right? And by setting goals, you give yourself targets.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for females, I find a lot of times that in life their goals, and maybe tying back in with their definition of success is they go to school. Once they finish and graduate school, then they can focus on finding a long-term relationship, if you will. And it doesn't go exactly in this order, but there are very similar goals. Okay, so you go to school, you finish school. Once you finish school, then you get in a relationship. When you get in a relationship, then it's time to get married. And then once you get married by your mid-20s, late 20s, then you have kids. And then once you have kids, there's also buying a house and all that tied in there, right? Now the challenge is when you set these goals, we're taught to set these goals, and that this is the sort of the definition of an amazing or a great life, if you will. And then what happens is, if by the time you're in your mid to late 20s and you finish school, you can't find a good relationship, then what happens?
Then you get sad or you blame yourself.
Sure.
Lots of things happen.
Right. And then, in your mid to late 20s or early 30s, you're not married.
Then you feel, what's wrong with me? Why can't I find the right person?
Maybe you bought a house. or maybe you
Yeah.
haven't. But if you don't buy a house, so you're not married, you're not in a long term relationship, you don't have a house, then you start to like, then it's now you're like in quicksand where it's like you're panicking, you're panicking and you're just digging yourself in a deep hole. And then what happens is by the time you're in your mid 30s, let's say you don't have children.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then you start to shame yourself even more. And then it's like the problem with that is that you set these goals, if you will, and if you're not achieving them, then you feel bad about them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not in a position to even like how can you have a goal of let's say being married and having children if you're not in a healthy relationship with yourself or in a healthy relationship with somebody else? Then you end up kind of questioning yourself. And then I find that a lot of people in our um, age group, if you will, are the ones that are not already married with children are in this sort of like mindset that they are missing something because they haven't hit this goal, this goal, this goal, this goal by this certain time.
Mm.
And I believe that is sort of something that's very
It's like an erroneous zone. It's kind of an error in thinking. Or
yeah,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
you've been pre-programmed to think that
This
this
is how
this
life
this
should be.
this is how life should be, and if you're not hitting it by this age, this time, then you're not a
Yeah.
success, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then that messes with you.
For sure.
And there's no, that's where I believe in not necessarily setting goals and targets, but just attainable, um, what are those called, like tasks,
Mm.
very realistic tasks that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to exercise every single day, rather than I'm going to look this way by this time, and I'm going to you know
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting because growing up, and for the longest time, I'm a pro goal setting type of person. I'm all about, for me, that's kind of like creating that vision, right?
Mhm.
Of, this is how I want my life to look like. This is how I want to achieve. And because I set these goals, I was able to achieve them, right? Now, what I'm slowly finding that those goals actually achieving them doesn't always equate what I think is the life I want.
Fulfillment,
Yeah,
yeah.
of exactly is fulfillment or the
Mhm.
life I want to live. I
Mhm.
achieved the goals. I'm happy. I'm elated, but yet sometimes something is still missing.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking maybe it's because I now need to set bigger goals, higher goals, and then eventually I realize with a lot of self-reflection and deep work is it really my goals, or maybe it's just the way that I look at things? It's the lens, right?
Mhm.
So instead of being so focused on every year I need to achieve this new level, this new goal, how about just kind of figuring out that ideal life I want to live? Like what is my you know in the best shape look like? What is my in the most mental clear state looks like? And what do I see myself enjoying? For example, I see myself enjoying taking walks, being fit, dancing, writing, reading, um, serving, right? Giving back, talking to people. I love interactions, helping others,
Mhm.
and then somehow incorporate those as daily habits or daily tasks or daily to dos into the life and the work that I do. So that way I'm focused on the process, not so much on the end goal.
For sure.
Because every time I do focus on the end goal, and I'm not enjoying the process, I'm always like, oh my God, like when am I gonna hit this goal? Or if I hit it, then what's next, kind of thing, right? And so, as much as I was such a pro goal setting kind of individual, I do want to talk about the fact that there's so much nuances to it, and we gotta make sure we are really aware of the things that we're teaching others and our future generations.
Yeah.
Because if we have it's going to be that vicious cycle again, right? I talked to a few young professionals as well as just young adults, right? Where they share with me how they feel so lost at times because they are not where they think they would be, or they're confused, their family doesn't support the path that they're on, they're at this age. Some of them, said, I don't even have, a house, when my friends have a house, they have a family, they have children. And sometimes it's easy to look at other people and just kind of compare yourself,
Absolutely,
right? And say, well, if that's what society said is success, well, I'm not successful at all. But that's so wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? At the end of the day, it's really what we think is success based on everyone else telling us. The media, our friends,
These
our family.
unrealistic expectations we've set for ourselves. Yeah.
But we never sat down to ask, do I even want that? Like, if my family tell me you should settle down, you should have kids, you should do this, do that. I know everyone have great intentions for us, right? And we do this to those we love too. We also tell them, I feel like this is good for you, you should do this. But I feel like for me now, what's important is every young individual should learn is self-awareness. Once you know who you are, it doesn't matter what everyone else's goals are, what everyone else's definition of success is. You'll figure out what is the right path for you. You'll figure out what is success for you. I mean, it's taken me, now I am 43, for me to learn that. So imagine if our own children is able to learn it at a much younger age.
Yes.
Yeah. Where they're like, I respect everyone else's opinion, I respect everyone else's take on what success is, but to me, like, they're always tuned into their own emotions or feelings.
Our parents' generation were not equipped.
No, for sure.
To be able to teach us that, and I think that there was no. That's something that was so hard to define. You know, going back when our parents were in their 30s and 40s, maybe there are certain countries or cultures that were a little bit more advanced in terms of self-awareness and how to define it, or personal development, if you will. But I feel like our parents, they just definitely were not equipped to be able to teach us that stuff. And there was no clear-cut sort of definition of this is what a self-aware person looks like or does or is. And hopefully the fact that we can define it and that we are conscious of it and aware of it is something that we can pass along to our children. And maybe they might not understand it, because I feel like life at the end of the day is something you just have to experience it. And you put all your experiences together and it helps you to understand whatever that definition of self-awareness is to you as an individual, right?
For sure. And you just gotta learn to connect the dots and this is why I love telling stories and sharing stories from our past, because when we share those stories, whether it's to others or even just to ourselves, like if we kind of, journaling is a way of writing out the story of your life and just kind of reflecting back and just kind of think, what's the lesson in that story? What did I learn? Like, why did I do that? And connect the dot, like the things that I do now, some of the things I do now, I don't even know why I did it, but it's probably connected to certain things that happened to us when we were younger, and just kind of see those stories play out, kind of give us a sense of understanding of who we are, kind of where we belong in this world. And I think that questions of that existential question is something we constantly think about, and then we kind of answer that by all these other things that are told to us, where we need to play this role, we need to achieve this, and things like that, right? But yeah, I mean, It's an interesting topic, and the reason I so want to talk about it is just I just want to encourage all of our friends and everyone that's listening to do spend some time, especially if you feel that you're in a cycle where you're feeling frustrated. Maybe you are depressed, you're kind of, or it doesn't have to even be to that level. It could just be
Anxiety
overwhelmed.
or
Yeah,
yeah.
you're anxious, you feel overwhelmed, you don't feel like you have enough time to yourself to do everything. It's just kind of pause and just take stock and just kind of look at what's happening in your life and really ask yourself the questions: what would make you happy? And this is when you kind of have to always have that curiosity mindset where it's like you're always asking questions. You're like, is this for me?
Yeah.
Is this making me happy? What are other people doing? What's happening around me? Are there people who want what I want and are living a different life than the way that I am? How are they doing it? So when you constantly ask those questions, how you get to learn, right?
Yeah, just be
And
careful not to compare
yes, yes, yes,
yourself to those people and how they're doing what they're doing, because they're
that's
doing
right.
it. That's their journey, and your journey is
That's
your journey,
right.
right?
That's right. But in a sense, it's asking how so you can learn and then figure out, is that really truly what you want
Yeah.
either. And that's where I guess then the next step too is to kind of practice courage, right?
Yeah.
I know we talked a lot about this too. I mean, we talk about our ideal life and we said we want to be in a much warmer climate, and we want to be able to take our kids like right after school. They can go to the beach, or they can just explore the nature around them. It's sunny every day. We're not just cooped up inside waiting for that one season to be out. And we kind of talk and explore about the idea of perhaps even moving to another country, another setting that kind of suit all of that. But we're scared. We're obviously and I feel like this kind of reminds me that if you feel like there's something that you're truly called for and you need that change, it takes courage.
Yeah.
So you do have to kind of build that courage to just try it out and see how things are. I think.
Well,
Go
to
ahead.
that point, that's where, kind of tying it back. I feel like that is sort of another moving target in that. I don't know I don't know if I'm so drawn to living in a warmer climate as much as I used to be. Maybe it's an age thing, but now I'm sort of more drawn to a cooler climate.
Huh, I
You
know,
know.
that's interesting. So then you like to stay in Canada?
Well, what? Well, yeah. I can't necessarily say Canada, but specific, like not specifically Canada, because there's a lot of places that have. I do like that there are seasons, and I
Yeah.
definitely want to live somewhere where you kind of have the option
Yeah.
to kind of be in a sunnier, warmer by the beach, but to be able to be in a cool climate as well. So, I mean, there's lots of places that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I was just joking, but of course, it's something that we kind of constantly need to revisit
Yeah.
and talk about, like that environment that we want to raise our children in. There's so many factors that come into place,
For sure.
right? As well. I do know I love warm climate, but I mean that could mean we can take off for a month or 2 months,
Yeah.
Down south. Or travel, to the other side of the world, and just to be able to explore more.
Yeah.
And then when it's nice and warm here in Toronto,
Season.
Niagara Falls,
Yeah.
we can stay put here as well too. But yeah, see, like every year we have these new ideals, these new goal, and kind of like the life that we want to live. Because I feel like ultimately my definition of success is to be joyful and to feel like I'm contributing and to be serving at my highest self, right? But in order to do that, I gotta make sure I'm happy. In order to do that, I gotta do the work on me first.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm fit, I am mentally and physically in a great place, right? And so yeah, anyways, I'm curious if you guys are listening what your definition of success is, and what do you think about like this goal setting, and in terms of what are your thoughts on what we have shared. So besides that, anything else you want to add on this topic, or anything else you want to share?
I had a little brain fart. There was something I wanted to mention, but I kind of I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean the topic success is huge because we can, and then we can narrow it down too, right? We can kind of niche it down to like.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
What is it?
I did want to bring up, I've had sort of the pleasure, or I guess the pleasure of being able to be sort of a fly on the wall in some of the conversations that you've been having with some clients and some friends and things like that. And one point that was brought up that was very interesting to me was that you were talking with a client of yours about leaving Ontario or Toronto, I guess Ontario, and how it's a very interesting province in that a lot of people, for some reason, sort of get stuck here. And I mean, I can only speak based on my friends and my network and stuff like that, but it does feel a lot like the more people I meet around Ontario, they don't leave Ontario. I mean, aside from the 1 week or the 2 week vacation that the majority of Ontarians take to go to Mexico or Jamaica or to Cuba, it's like this like lifestyle of exploring and travel. And not to say there's nothing wrong with Ontario. It's a beautiful part of the country. There's so much to explore. The city is amazing, and we've got Niagara Falls, and up northern Ontario is beautiful, full of lush trees and mountains, and well, not mountains, but small mountains, and lakes and stuff like that, which is incredible. But like for us, we haven't gone on an airplane since 2019.
I know.
And it's not because we didn't have the means to travel. Maybe you could say that because we had young kids, it was a little bit harder. And obviously COVID played a big factor in there. But for the most part, this is the first time in my life where I usually at least get on a plane at least once a year. At least, at the very, very least. And aside from a road trip here and there, even all of last year when we were capable to travel, we, for some reason or another, we didn't get around to it. Obviously, when it comes to travel is a little bit of a luxury in that if you're flying somewhere, it can get very costly, and to stay in hotels, it can get very costly. But I found ourselves, we're sort of on that side of we're a little bit stuck right now.
Okay.
And I'm curious, if other people sort of, feel similar or the same as well. I guess I haven't really paid attention a lot to our all of our network because we have some friends that have been traveling and managed to get away, but I feel like our network overall, there's probably a lot more people that have stuck around and not traveled anywhere versus going on and exploring somewhere new.
And I remember that conversation, and then the fact that when you do travel and when you start to get out and explore and decide to try to stay in other places, you start to meet all these people who are constantly like travel and they feel safe and everything is okay, right? Yeah, I think that's just part of that. Once you're in a comfort zone and you stay there, you don't really know what you're missing out until you step out. I'm sure that travel bug is gonna get to us as soon as we continue. We still travel. It's just based on, you know, yeah, on the roads, not flying.
You know, I guess one of the factors that comes into play that I just thought about, you know, it's a double edged sword. You know, Toronto being such a diverse city. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. There are some of the best, you know, food experiences and chefs and restaurants in Toronto that you kind of can't. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's not many other places that I can think of that are as diverse as Toronto. Like, maybe
New York.
Maybe New York. Maybe I've heard Chicago. Like Chicago, I've been there a couple times, but Chicago has a good culinary scene, and LA as well. But I don't know how they compare. I'm not even going to attempt to try to say which one is better than the other in terms of food. But Toronto definitely has a great food scene, and it's amazing that, you know, for us to, like, we live in Niagara Falls. Like, as soon as we leave Toronto, it's like we got to go back. You know, I can't wait to go back to eat, you know, XYZ restaurant. And it's a double-edged sword in that, you know, when you do travel, if you're not, one of the things that might hold you back or might stop you is that the fact that, you know, if you go and travel, that you're not getting the, you know,
the same food experience.
Yeah, and the vast amount of options that you can get. Like, there's nowhere else in the world, and it's one of those things that I think it definitely plays a factor in, like.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, if you're gonna travel just for the food experience, Toronto is amazing.
Yeah.
So, but if you're traveling for other for other experiences, and you go around the world and just kind of like explore, then you'll see there's other aspects there's other aspects in in these regions and in these towns and in these areas. That allows you to have a different cultural experience as well too. Yeah. So I'm curious why you kind of brought that up. Is it just mainly just to?
Well, I thought about it, and I was just like, you know, one of the things I think about when I'm traveling, and like the reason why I brought it up is I feel like it definitely plays a factor into, like, us going to other places, because it's like, you know, for example, I love Japanese food and food culture. I love Korean food and food culture. I love, a lot of the Asian food cultures and experiences. But what I'm curious about is if we were to go to Japan to, like, let's say, to live for an extended period of time, like, is that a culinary, you know, sort of experience that we would be, like, get sick of?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess food plays such a huge factor in our life because we make it so.
Right.
Right.
That's like the downside of being a foodie, is that if you can't get good food, then you're kind of...
You don't want to live there. Right.
Yeah.
But if you focus on other aspects.
Absolutely, yeah.
If it's not just about the food, maybe you can think about living there. But I guess the best way to know is to try. Like, if we never... I mean, it's scary to uproot yourself, to move to a different country. I mean, our parents did it, but back then, that's because a lot of the time they didn't have a choice, right? And so it's kind of like, you know, sometimes when you're forced to, or when you're pushed to make that decision, or, you know, or to make that move, you kind of have to adapt to it. You kind of have to make the most of it.
I mean, we did that when we moved here. You know, again, we're only an hour 15 from Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's definitely not the same or similar type of food scene,
Yeah. Yeah.
in Niagara and compared to Toronto, and it's definitely something that I'd be lying if I said it didn't cross my mind,
Yeah.
regularly, to be able to, like, when we lived in Queen West, and it was just like you could kind of
You get access to
you could
everything.
throw a stone in any which direction, and you have an amazing culinary experience from all over. Like, you can have Mexican, and you can have Jamaican, and you can have
Yeah, Chinese,
Caribbean,
Korean,
Chinese. Yeah, we were like right
Caribbean.
down the street from the Chinatown, and it was like, you get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we are spoiled from growing up in Toronto
Yeah.
in a way that we get so much options there that it's so different. So if you guys are listening and you're not from Toronto, you should definitely make a visit to Toronto. Okay? Toronto, I love Toronto. It's an amazing, great city. Mind you, for a visit, living there now is a little bit different for me. Every time we drive back, I find the traffic is hectic.
Oh yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just
That's on the other end, where it's like, that's one of the things
so busy.
I enjoy living, like, not living in Toronto.
Yeah, once you live though, it's different. You want that, like for us anyways, we have kids. If you're a young professional and want that experience, however, the cost of living is high. It's so expensive to rent a space down in downtown Toronto.
But that's sort of, now there's such a big ripple effect, is that it's expensive in a lot of places in southern Ontario.
Yeah, yeah. And hence that's why there is a trend of a lot of young people going somewhere else, going down south, going to other parts of the world.
Moving to Western Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
Alberta.
Yeah, that's right. Moving to other parts of Canada, even just to get that experience that they're looking for, and so that it's more affordable as well, too, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I guess at any point in time when we feel like if we're just go, 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 and if we're just working so hard just to be able to kind of afford the lifestyle we want to live here, we might have to make that move as well too. Well, you do have a friend that moved from Ontario to Calgary, right? And you look at his life.
Well, yeah, like my one of my best friends growing up, like he uprooted about a decade ago and moved out west to Alberta, and it was, at the time when he was doing it, it was just like, man, you got no friends there, you got no family there, like, you just, him and his wife, and it was just like, I don't know how you could do that. But now I look at it and I'm just like, man, he comes to visit Ontario, I don't know, 5-6 times a year.
Yeah.
He visits Ontario a lot, and he travels a lot, and it's the nature of his business is a little bit of travel. Well, his previous business was to travel quite a bit over on Canada, but the lifestyle that he was able to achieve, because of the cost of living is much lower there. His mortgage for a home that he's living in is like, it's probably like, half the amount that it is if you were to take that same home and put it here somewhere in southern Ontario. So, he's got that much more money sort of left in his pockets that allows him to have a better
experience,
quality of life. Car insurance is less expensive, food is less expensive, homes are less expensive, gas is less expensive, and it's I will say, I never thought, just like, much like I had never considered living in Niagara Falls, I had never considered living somewhere outside of Ontario, because I always felt like maybe it was one of those things that, like, just like with when we were, like, our parents were our age and growing up, and it was like instilled to us at a young age that Toronto is
yeah,
this great, city, and not to say that it's not, but it's like we were sort of, because it was like
That's all we
the
know.
best, if you will, then you would never consider living, anywhere else. And then now that I've got perspective and experience and all that, it's like now it's like, wow, I contemplate the idea of, uprooting or a little bit further outside of where we are now, and to give our family and that better quality of life too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I do actually have something to ask you since it's only a couple more days until your birthday. Yes. And you're turning 42.
Yep.
Yeah, John is a year younger than me. And so, do you have any thoughts when usually around your birthday or any reflection?
Uh, Man, I mean, I haven't really had a chance to think so much about my birthday. I think this last year was a whirlwind of like emotions, in terms of like all the changes that have happened with regards to life and business and stuff like that, that have sort of forced me to reflect on the decisions that I've made in life to get the life that we are living now, and and you know, well, I mean, I know for one thing, it was such a crazy year that all I wanted to do for my birthday is just hang out with the boys and not think about everything I think about
Yeah.
on a daily basis. Just to kind of get together with the guys that you know when I get together with them, I don't think about so much of the serious things in life. You know? So
I guess
yeah, I
I
don't
guess
know.
it's different for me every time it's my birthday. I reflect back and say, I guess like who am I at this point? Am I happy with the person that I've come to be? Are there things that I've learned, and how do I make it continue to make it better,
Yeah.
make my life better as well too. So in terms of that question, um, how do you feel about yourself in terms of your personal growth?
That's a good question. I think that in terms of personal growth, I definitely am feeling a lot more confident in my um, ability to be physically active.
Mm. Yeah,
You
I know
know,
that's something you've been working on.
yeah, I think for the longest time, like I lived a very active lifestyle. Like when I was young, I naturally was attracted to basketball, and it started because I in my family's store, in the warehouse of the store that we used to have, we had a basketball net, and like when I was there, I didn't really care to work so much. I was young, right? I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 7, 8 years old, and I would just sit there and play basketball all the time, and then it developed into a passion for the game, and I used to play a lot, and then from there, I played baseball, and I played football, and I would ride my bike everywhere, and then I got into swimming, and so I was really big into sports. So activity was just a part of my
Mm.
lifestyle, and health. I mean, when I was young, health was like, I mean, physically, I was definitely healthy, but definitely when it came to, I mean, I don't know, maybe I burned so much calories, but when it came to like eating, I could just eat whatever, and
Mm.
I would still be 100 pounds soaking wet. But in my later, teens and early 20s, I became a little bit more docile. I I think I was so involved in sports that I didn't have much of a social life outside of sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then um, when it came to my late teens and early 20s, I changed and I focused a lot on my social life, and I
Mm-hmm.
forgot so much about the active
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. And I definitely I put on a lot of weight, and then when I got to my point where I focused and I eat, sleep, and breathe business, I definitely forgot about, I completely stopped living, an active lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became like, obviously, with age and stuff like that, it's a lot harder to kind of get back on track. But going back to your question, I definitely feel like this last year working with a personal trainer, is enabled me to become stronger and to build an active lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't quite, um, from a physical standpoint, lost the weight that I'd like to, in terms of being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm definitely, like I said, I'm a lot stronger, and I'm happy with the progress that I've made so far, and and I'd like to continue with this sort of active and
Mm-hmm.
healthy lifestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, I mean, I look forward to you celebrating, having fun on your birthday.
Yeah.
I think you deserve that. You've been working very hard as a dad,
Mhm.
as my fan and supporter. But I know that, a birthday is really just a way for us to celebrate life. And
Mhm.
right, because I feel life is a miracle, and the
Mhm.
fact that we are here and we are breathing, that it is a miracle in itself. So I'm excited for that. But at this point, I also just want to kind of quickly wrap up as well too, and just say thank you to everyone who's been joining us in our.
I thought you were gonna sing "Happy Birthday" to me right now.
Oh, you want me to? to
We're gonna wrap things up.
to say thank you for tuning in to our weekly conversations. I mean, they're kind of random. We might have some ideas,
Yeah.
unscripted, unedited.
Yeah.
But if there's anything that you hear that you have some thoughts on, we love to hear your perspective on things as well too. And I know I mentioned this before, but soon I love to be able to invite some guests as well to come on. What do you think about that?
Um, I'm open to either.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, because then we have to stick to a schedule and stuff like that, and be respectful of their time and what have you. And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah,
one more thing to kind of consider.
for
But I'm
sure.
open to it too, because I feel like adding another sort of level and opinion, and another level of conversation is definitely, more perspective, is it's more opportunity for us to learn about.
Yeah, to dig deeper on a topic,
Yeah.
to learn from someone else, and I'm sure all of you guys listening. And right now, our conversations kind of range so much from basically our own stories of the things that we're passionate about,
Yeah.
which is our family, relationships, our business, life, personal growth, mental health. So many things that we can talk about
For sure.
that I love to be able to bring on some guest speakers who can share their own perspective about
Yeah.
their own uh, journey as well too.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, I look forward to
Till
that.
then,
Yeah. So until next week, see you. Thank you.
good night and goodbye.